Flint, Michigan was a financial disaster and had the highest water rates in the nation. And it had some of the poorest water. In spring of 2013, Emergency Manager Ed Kurtz approved a plan that was going to change the trajectory of the water. In a 7-to-1 vote, the city council also voted to support this, although they did not have the authority to execute that. They were going to move from Detroit Water to the Karangandi Water Authority. There was a roughly $200 million build for cheaper water and associated jobs that would come along with it. The Detroit Water canceled the contract a few days later, so Flint had a year to find another source of water, so they went with the Flint water source. In April of 2014, a switch is made and the problems begin. Bacteria, TTHM issues, Legionella, lead in the water. These are all some of the things that happen. Keep in mind, there is no acceptable level, no acceptable level of lead in any water. But these are when the problems started. Leanne Walters, who's here in the audience today, we appreciate the brave nature in which you have stepped forward. She's just a citizen. She isn't a water expert, but she stepped forward. She did the difficult thing. And somehow, some way, she found the fortitude to get a hold of the EPA in February of 2015, where Miguel Del Toro at the EPA came out to Michigan and actually started doing some testing. By June of 2015, a report was finalized. That report was then leaked, if you will. It was put out there. We have with us the mayor at the time, Mayor Walling. You look at his resume, Mayor Walling's a smart person. He's well-educated. He's been very ingrained in the community. And he went out on television. I want to show a clip from that television because there's a reason why he actually went on television. But I want to show that clip now.
Okay, so we are here on the set, Mayor, back on the set. Are you ready to drink it?
Yeah,
okay.
My family and I drink the water every day, so. It's your standard tap water. You taste a little bit of the chlorine. All of our tests ever since this year have been comparable with what we used to get out of Detroit. Now, last year was different. The chlorine level was elevated. There were the TTHMs, which is actually colorless, but it's a concern. But those issues have been put behind us, and now I think it's more a matter of the perception.
So it is safe to drink, and you drink it every day. Your family uses it every day, you say, and also just a little taste. You said a little different taste, or?
Well, now it tastes very similar to any other tap water. It's got a little bit of a chlorine taste. I mean, look, anyone who gets used to drinking bottled water that's purified or distilled, that's going to be different than what you get out of a municipal tap. But we're testing it regularly. All of those tests are available online. So we want people to know exactly where the water stands, and we're continuing to improve it with the new carbon filter going in next week. It's just going to continue to get more dependable and more secure.
That was July 8th of 2015. The report was finalized by Miguel Del Toro in June. I think we're going to hear testimony that Ms. Hedman and the EPA communicated to the mayor that it was safe to drink the water. And that message was then conveyed to the citizens. And it wasn't until January of this year that the EPA actually took some definitive action. Now, it's not to say that the EPA is the only one at fault. The Department of Environmental Quality at the state of Michigan is also at fault here. But if the EPA or the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality would have taken action in the summer of 2015, when the EPA Region 5 Regulations Manager, Miguel Del Toro, wrote the memo to his superiors warning of the dangerously high levels of lead in the drinking water, perhaps none of this would have happened. What's sickening about this is it was totally avoidable. The former head of Region 5, Ms. Susan Hedman, who is with us today, dismissed and downplayed this memo, calling it, quote, a preliminary draft, end quote, and asserting, quote, it would be premature to draw any conclusions, end quote. So the residents of Flint continue to drink the water, poisoning them and their families. The next opportunity for EPA to take action came from outcries for help from city officials, Congressman Dan Kildee was also very engaged in this. It reached a fevered pitch in September of 2015, and still no action was taken. In fall of 2015, local Flint residents filed an emergency petition with the EPA. Ms. Hedman continued to dismiss the problem and claimed the EPA was monitoring the situation. In December of 2015, the city of Flint declared a state of emergency. A month later, Governor Snyder declared a state of emergency for Flint, activated the state's Emergency Operations Center, and requested a federal declaration of disaster. Finally, on January 21st, 2016, nearly 7 months after Miguel del Toro's memo, the EPA issued an emergency administrative order citing, quote, imminent and substantial endangerment exists, end quote, with regard to the high levels of lead in the Flint water supply. But how many more people were poisoned in those 7 months? How many illnesses were worsened in those 7 months? On that same day that emergency order went out, that same day Ms. Hedman rightfully resigned. But her resignation doesn't heal the sick and ease the suffering of the residents of Flint. And what concerns me, we'll deal with on Thursday, is the action of resigning by Ms. Hedman was characterized by the EPA administrator as courageous. That was courage, according to the administrator. But we'll, like I said, deal with that on Thursday. What happened in Flint can never happen again. And it's almost unbelievable how many bad decisions were made. Government at every level, local, state, and federal, made poor decisions. And our role in a committee is to ensure federal agencies and employees do their job. According to the EPA's website, its mission is to protect human health and the environment, end quote. They failed at every single letter, at every single level. Instead, the EPA seems to be working on other things, other priorities. I'm going to enter some things into the record, and this is going to make some people uncomfortable. There have been a lot of accusations about, was this driven by race? Was this driven by the fact that this was a poor city? Is this because they're underserved? There are a lot of accusations out here. This is an internal memo, and before you put it up, I want you to understand who this is going back and forth with. This is Jennifer Crooks, EPA Michigan Program Manager, Region 5. Debbie Baltazar, EPA Region 5 Branch Manager. Timothy Henry, EPA Region 5 Associate Director of the Water Division. And Steve Marquardt, I don't know how to pronounce his name, EPA Environmental Engineer. This is an internal memo. Go ahead and put it up. September 24th. Perhaps she already knows all this, but I'm not so sure Flint is the community we want to go out on a limb for. Are you kidding me? The EPA administrator says that Susan Hedman was courageous for resigning. It didn't take us but a couple hours once we got these memos to find the problem here. You can take down that. Why isn't Flint the community they go to? You know, of all the communities out there, the one that's having the toughest time is the one that needs the most protection. And you can shake your head and say, oh yeah, but the EPA had every opportunity to make the right move here, and they didn't. And the Department of Environmental Quality, don't think you get off the hook either. Because one of the things that is fundamentally and totally wrong here is they had the information and they would not release it to the public. The Congress now, at least the House, has passed a piece of legislation saying when you have this information, you have to release it within hours. That's just common sense. It shouldn't take an act of Congress to tell the EPA that they need to make this information public. We're going to have good, vibrant hearings today. So I would ask unanimous consent to enter this into the record. Without objection, so ordered. I'm also would like to enter into the record a Darnell Early directive, an order number 15, dated June 20th, 2014, turning over to Mayor Walling from Darnell Early, the emergency manager at the time, the day-to-day operations for the Department of Planning and Development and the Department of Public Works, without objection, so ordered. Another email from, an email from Miguel del Toro. This is correspondence back and forth, dated July 8th, 2015. You know, one of the concerns is you got a Miguel del Toro, pretty much on the line, right? He's right there on the front lines. One of the things I've heard that's probably the most disturbing is that he felt like he was retaliated against. In fact, we had a hearing last year about the actions of Susan Hedman in Region 5 and the retaliation. 3 whistleblowers coming up talking about retaliation efforts. And here you have Miguel del Toro on July 8th, finally gets fed up. One of the things he said is, "It almost sounds like I'm stuck in a corner holding up a potted plant because of Flint. One misstep in 27 plus years here and people lose their minds." This was a guy who wasn't allowed to travel. He suddenly had to go to ethics training. He had to do all these other things. That's how Region 5 and the EPA was operating. This guy should be put up as getting a raise. You want to give a bonus to somebody? Give it to Miguel del Toro. He was doing the right thing. Instead, he's being reprimanded. And I'd ask that this be entered into the record as well, without objection so ordered. On July 15th, 2015, I'll enter into this also into the record, without objection so ordered. And then finally, Miguel del Toro gets fed up on September 22nd of 2015. This is how he starts the email. "This is no surprise. Lead lines plus no treatment equals high lead in water equals lead poisoning children." This is how it starts in September. And the EPA didn't do anything until January. I don't understand that. This is the kind of thing that has to immediately get out into the public. Immediately. Let me read another paragraph from this email. "At every stage of this process, it seems we spend more time trying to maintain state-local relationships than we do trying to protect the children. I said this from the very beginning, and I will say it again. You don't have to drop a bowling ball off of every building in every city to prove that gravity and science will work the same way everywhere. It's basic chemistry." Then November, I ask unanimous consent to enter that into the record without objection so ordered. And I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an EPA internal memo, November 3rd, 2015. "After reviewing the rule with our Office of General Counsel, it appears there are differing possible interpretations of the lead-copper rule with respect to how the rule's optimal corrosion control treatment processes apply to this situation, which may have led to some uncertainty with respect to the Flint water system," end quote. The law, something already passed out of this Congress, is the lead and copper rule is supposed to be updated every 6 years. We're now being told it won't be updated until 2018. 12 years after it was supposed to. And you will hear back and forth in the correspondence about concern from the state and the Department of Environment. What are they supposed to do? And this is the general counsel, the director of the Office of Groundwater and Drinking Water saying, yeah, this continues to be a problem. Mr. Edwards has highlighted this as an ongoing problem. So there's a lot here to discuss, okay? This should never, ever have happened in the first place. With that, I will now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings.